Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Food Freedom Podcast. This is the podcast for women who are tired of being trapped in the cycle of food addiction, binge eating, and emotional eating, and tired of dealing with all that noise that comes with it. I am your host, Coach Mary Roberts, and today I want to talk about something that comes up all the time in the space I'm in online, I guess, and that is, what's the difference between mindful eating and intuitive eating? And recently I was on a podcast with Dr. Christina on her Beyond Binge Eating podcast, and this topic, she asked me what I thought of intuitive eating, and we just briefly talked about it, and I gave a short answer, but I thought, let's do a whole episode on this. So what's the difference between mindful eating and intuitive eating? And more importantly, why I think intuitive eating may not be a good approach if you are someone who struggles with food addiction or disordered eating behaviors like binging, compulsive eating, emotional eating. So let's just get right into it. Some quick definitions. Mindful eating is simply about awareness. It means being present when you eat, slowing down, maybe noticing flavors and textures, knowing your hunger cues and your fullness cues, and your emotional state when you're eating. And it's a practice of, observing. You are literally, observing and being mindful of what you're doing. And you can be following a structured food plan or protocol, and you can also still be practicing mindful eating. It's not about what you eat, it's about how you eat it. So it's a useful tool that can be practiced by just about anyone, including those of us in recovery from food addiction. And really, in the recovery process, it's just kind of something that begins to happen when you are in recovery. It's not something that you necessarily have to be super intentional about doing. For, a lot of us, it happens naturally in the process of recovery, and then we realize it, and then it becomes more intentional. So intuitive eating, on the other hand, is a philosophy of eating that pretty much encourages you to make food choices based on internal cues like hunger, fullness, satisfaction, and to reject diet culture, food rules, and restrictions. It promotes pretty much full permission to eat all the things, all the foods, no judgment on food choices, and the idea of trusting your body to guide you. I mean, that sounds great in theory, right? But here's the thing. That all sounds very lovely if you're someone with a normal, healthy relationship with food, which I think we've established here at this podcast. If you're listening to this, it's probably not you. It's not me. I never had a normal, healthy relationship with food. But for those of us who have a history of food addiction or disordered eating, the intuitive eating approach, the idea of it can literally be dangerous for us. So if you're in active food addiction or struggling with binge eating or emotional eating, you already know your intuition is broken when it comes to food. What feels intuitive isn't a calm voice of wisdom, it's the voice of our addiction. And so let's talk about that, food addiction and so-called intuition. Let's be real. If you are in the midst of an active food addiction, or you've spent years binging, emotionally eating, being out of control with food, your intuition is broken. You're not broken. Your intuition is broken. Not permanently, though, not hopelessly, but right now, if you're still in the storm of addiction, your so-called intuition is going to tell you to eat the very foods you've used as a drug. Because for you, food hasn't just been fuel. It's been that escape, the comfort, punishment, reward, numbing, entertainment, your everything, right? That's what food has been to us. So intuitively, we want to eat the very foods that harm us. But why? Because they act like drugs in our brains. Sugar, the ultra processed foods, processed carbs, all of our drug foods, they light up the same reward centers as drugs like cocaine and alcohol. And for someone who's food sober, allowing those foods back in under the label of, quote, intuitive eating is, I mean, you're just asking for relapse. You're on the fast track to relapse if you try to go that route. Think about it. If your intuition has been hijacked by years of compulsive eating, binging, and emotional eating with food, then following that intuition is like, it's handing this, steering wheel over to our addiction. It's letting Ed drive. It doesn't lead to freedom. It's going to lead to chaos. So, that unconditional permission to eat it's a trap, right? Like, so one of the core principles of intuitive eating is that unconditional permission to eat. But when you've spent years using food to cope and numb and stuff or escape, I mean, what do we think that permission's going to actually lead to? So when someone says, just listen to your body, I mean, that's nice. We should learn to listen to our body. But in the beginning, we can't trust it. You might think, oh, okay, my body, when someone says that, just listen to your body, you might think, okay, somebody is, but my body is screaming for sugar at 10 o'clock at night. My body wants chips and ice cream when I'm anxious. My body wants to eat till I feel nothing, right? Till I'm like in a zombie food coma. So that's not intuition. That's addiction. Your cravings are not these, sacred truths that we can trust. They are chemical responses, emotional habits, those neural pathways that have been deeply reinforced in us over a lifetime. Like, if you give yourself full permission to eat all the foods, and when you're in that state, you're not healing, you're just continuing the cycle. But now it's just with the illusion that you're doing something healthy because it's wrapped in this language of self-love, right? Unconditional permission without boundaries is not healing, it's enabling, and especially when your brain chemistry has been altered by years and years of food abuse. All right, so here's where mindful eating can fit. It can actually be a very helpful tool in our recovery, but it has to be within the safety of some structure, right? Like, once we've removed the addictive foods, our drug foods, from our menu, like we've gotten them out of our diet and we've created some stability, then we can start like being intentional about practicing mindfulness at our meals. Like, we can pay attention. We can start learning how to honor our hunger and fullness cues because the drug foods are out of our system. We can't do this when drug foods are in our system, so we can start noticing when we want to eat out of emotion. And we can start choosing to sit and deal with those feelings instead and deal with filling our real needs instead. And mindful eating, is going to support our recovery. It's not something that's going to conflict with it. So, but intuitive eating with its total freedom and rejection of so-called freedom, with its total freedom and total rejection of any structure, like that's working, directly against our recovery. So for those of us in food addiction recovery, being intentional, having a mindful approach, and along with some structure is going to be like a lot more helpful to us. So we remove our drug foods, we eat real, nourishing, nutrient-dense food. We can plan our meals ahead at times, when it's helpful to avoid that, chaotic, reactive, addicted eating. And yes, we're practicing mindfulness. We're paying attention to our body's cues, but we also know that some cues cannot be trusted in early recovery. Mine couldn't. Like, if I, went with what I felt and listened to my Ed brain, I would have continued to eat drug foods and would have continued to just try to moderate them, right? So, those cues are not going to be helpful. It's like detoxing from any other addictive substance. You can't trust the craving. You have to get clear headed, got to, have that brain fog lift when the drug foods are removed. And we have to become somewhat stabilized before we can even begin to learn what real hunger and real satiety feels like. You can't know that if you're still eating processed foods and still trying to fit in drug foods. You'll never learn real hunger and real satiety if that's the path that you're going. So we just need to remember we're not broken. We just need a different path. And so if intuitive eating hasn't worked for us, that doesn't mean we're weak. It doesn't mean we failed. It means we need a different approach, one that's going to actually recognize the reality of food addiction. That's a big problem with people that push intuitive eating. They literally do not recognize that food addiction is real. They poo-poo it, they shrug it off. Some of them, it's not even on their radar because they have never been food addicted. And in their mind, all you have to do is what they do because it works for them. But, we have to understand that the power of our drug foods, and ultra processed hyper palatable carbohydrates, those are dopamine spiking foods and they hijack our brain. So you're not crazy for not being able to eat in moderation. You're not defective because you can't trust your body right now. You're someone who needs boundaries before freedom and structure before intuition, like healing before flexibility. There's certain things that have to happen. You can't just launch into, I'm going to do intuitive eating. So let me leave you with this. Intuitive eating, it's not bad, it's not evil, it's not, quote, wrong. Okay, it works for a lot of people. But for those of us in recovery from food addiction, those of us who have a history of binge eating or compulsively eating, it's not the right starting point. That's not where we start. You wouldn't hand a bottle of wine to someone newly sober and say, here, trust yourself, right? So why would we do that with food? In recovery, we are learning to rebuild trust with ourselves, with food, our bodies, and all of that comes through doing the work. All of that comes through building a new structure and having abstinence from our drug foods and gaining clarity when the brain fog lifts because we've cut out the drug foods. Only then can we start that process of truly becoming free. And remember, just because something is a popular message, just because there's thousands of diet gurus and nutritionists and registered dietitians out there, preaching and promoting intuitive eating, doesn't mean it's right for you. It doesn't mean you're broken. You're not broken. You just need a different path. So if you're in that place of feeling out of control and overwhelmed, I just want to remind you, there's always hope. There is hope. You can get to a place of peace with food and a place of acceptance. It just may not look like what our culture and what, the people that some of us follow online, it might not look like what they're all telling you it should look like. And that's okay. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If this resonated with you, and I hope it did, share it with somebody who you think needs to hear it, somebody who you think could relate. Or maybe share it with someone who cannot relate to you and keeps talking to you about intuitive eating. Let them listen to it. And if you want more support, tools, and real talk, come join my Food Freedom Tribe online community. Until next time, stay food sober, stay connected, and stay true to your healing.